Yes, ma'am. I beg forgiveness. I beg forgiveness. Right? Okay. See? And she got me on tape too. Okay, so the school board hired a search firm, Ray and Associates.
No,
right?
that's not what I asked.
I'm trying to get to it. Just go straight to it. We're hiring. We're making the decision.
Get straight through to it.
Is that's the answer?
I want your ownership. I want to know where you are in this process. How are you owning this process? I want to know where you are as it relates to owning this process. There's a lot of questions, a lot of answers. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of questions, there have been a lot of answers. We've been talking about a lot of different things that need to happen. The superintendent needs to do this, the superintendent needs to do that, the superintendent needs to do this. My question is, when you take all of those things from the community that the community is looking for in a superintendent, take it, flip it, and put it, do one of these, that you point one finger, 3 point back. Do that and give me the answer to all of those things, school board wise.
I swear I don't understand what you're asking me. So I'm going to, okay, is it that you want me to say what I'm going to do with this information?
In order to get to where the community is saying.
Right.
The community is saying we have to have a superintendent that does
Yes.
all of these things.
Okay.
We can't get there if the school board is not doing these things to get us there. I don't care what we sit here and say. We can say we want a superintendent that can walk from this chair to that chair and not touch one on the way over. If the school board is not on the same page,
Does it have the same expectation?
it will not
Okay,
happen.
so let me see. Let me restate this then. Are you asking
You
me?
can say, this is what I heard you say.
Oh, that's what I'm supposed to say. This is what I heard you say.
Okay.
Is that you want clarity on what I'm going to do as an individual school board member and what the school board will do collectively with this information we're receiving from the community and how will that translate to our decision making on the superintendent?
What I want.
See, you just ask me that.
Excellent.
Am I the only one that didn't understand the question at first?
You're the only one I asked the question.
That is what I was asking. So if I'm the only because if I'm the only one failed the test, then I didn't get it. If everybody failed the test, it was a bad test. Okay, so the answer.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You want us to make you feel better, but
You don't have to make me feel better.
Oh, okay. So you're the only one.
I'm the only one? Okay, that's okay. All right. I ain't the only one. Okay, so, no, really, okay, so this is it. We have this process in place, and it's a long answer, but I'm answering, because I want to explain the process again. So we hired this search firm, right? They've got their surveys out there. There are 8 officially sanctioned school board, school district, superintendent search, community input meetings. This one, to go back to your earlier question, this one is sponsored by the Coalition for Black Student Achievement, Revere Beach Education Value Board, and Inlet Grove Community High School. But it's being taped, and notes are being taken. This information will be sent to all the board members and the search firm, right? It will be considered in the short listing. That's where it's going to come in. So the search firm is receiving the applications. The deadline is April 2nd. They're going to do all the vetting, the background checking, and all that. They're going to make recommendations to us on April 7th. The names will go public, and they will, through their vetting process, have given us their top recommendations, the others who meet the criteria, and the ones who don't meet the criteria, right? Their shortlisting will take into account this information, the information they're getting from all those focus groups, and the surveys. So it's going to be considered there. And then as we do our shortlisting process, when we go from their recommendations to deciding who we're interviewing, we will have all of this in our heads. I will have all of this at the table in my decision-making process. Did I pass? Did I answer the question, whether or not you thought it was a good answer? Did I answer the question?
You answered the question,
Okay.
which also raises another question.
Okay, see.
And the reason it raises another question is because, you know, I really think that as it relates to the community and dealing with the superintendent, that there are a number, you know, we've heard the word paths, we've heard the word direction, we've heard the word focus, we've heard the word a number of things. There's a lot of expectations about a superintendent. Some of it's realistic and some of it isn't. So having said that, the school board, if you're getting to a point where April 7th, you're getting ready to do a scale down and do a review, how much cross-referencing are you really doing with the information that you're gathering that says, okay, based on these 8 community inputs, what happened in these meetings that was similar? What happened in these meetings where something just really very, very different stood out, and how much as a public can we find out that there was that type of dot-to-dot connections? You know, we're connecting this dot to this dot, but this dot over here stands out altogether. What happens with that? And that.
Okay. So I think that leads us into the rubric, right. But I think that you are not going to see some direct connection, right? Like okay. First off, let me add this. The other thing that I know is that the good candidates will watch this, right? And my expectation, in fact, one of my early questions in my one-on-one with them will be, did you watch these? But I don't think that you're going to see a checklist of all the things that you've said and a scoring based on that by each board member.
I would just like for them to make a connection. I don't even look for a scoring. Somewhere along the line, I know this is a very diverse county and it's large, but there are some similarities. I mean, there's some things that pop out that is the same. I want my child to achieve. Okay, what's being said in these other community meetings that's similar? And you need some kind of trust, I guess is the word that keeps coming to my mind, with the school board members. And if that trust factor is not there with the persons that are making the decision, and it makes it shaky. I mean, it's very comfortable to be able to say that. That's why I told you I'm a citizen. I can say these things.
Yes, ma'am. I think you were saying anyway. But no, I think that I understand exactly what you're saying. I will say this. I don't think that there's any predetermined candidate, right? I do think that the board individually and collectively want to do a good job, right? I think that we individually and collectively want to get the one, right? And so I am confident that this information will be, I have some degree of confidence that each board member, if they don't watch the video, will read the typed up notes, right? I have a promise from the head of the search firm that he is going to watch every one of the videos that I send him, and that all that will be factored into their deliberation as they make recommendations to us as a board, right? So, I can tell you this search firm has a very good track record. It's their track record that made me vote for them, because they're kind of bossy, I would say. You know, like, okay, so we as a board, we want to have our hands in everything. That's, you know, including me. And they're like, we got this. And so we've been kind of negotiating that duty list, right? I can tell you that they're the search firm that brought Runcie to Broward County. And they're the search firm that brought Dr. Maurice Green to Guilford County, North Carolina, which has the highest graduation rate in the nation. And those are my two highlights for them. They have a long list of other good superintendents that they brought, and they use the process that they're using with our district, and almost, my impression is that with much less input, right? So this is what they do. They've been doing superintendent searches for more than 30 years, right? And they have a great track record. So in one respect, I'm trying to not mess up their process, okay? But on the other hand, I'm trying to make sure that they hear what you say, right? And so that's the balancing act. So,
Perspective, do you mind if I add?
Not at all.
So I'm not going to answer for her. All right. I'm not answering for her, but
yeah, I know.
so the part that we also want to stress, important, and I believe it's important, that in this particular case, I just want to remind us again that this is not a district-sponsored community input meeting. In this particular case, there were 3 voices that we wanted to make sure got heard, and we took the initiative different from the district. One was the voice of those parents and employees and professionals who choose the child as a way of educating children. So thank you, Inlet Grove, for being one of the sponsors. The other is Rivera on behalf of parents, children, and families who live in neighborhoods that are often ignored, but certainly need to be heard. And then lastly, it was the Coalition for Black Student Achievement. So what we did was take our board member to task first. She didn't volunteer to do this. She was directed to be here so that she could hear not only our input, but our directives that she will, as a public servant, champion for us. Now, that also means we have a role, because too often we leave it and turn it over to the public servant, the elected official, and say, make this happen. The real reason that we're asking you to be engaged in this process tonight, and as we transition into the rubric, is so you have some actual buy-in. The reason we're taking your name is because we want to keep you informed, but there is much work we must do if we want the superintendent to be the right fit for the times. We just can't. Y'all see those board members? If y'all saw what I saw, I wouldn't leave it up to them to get the right superintendent. I'll be in their face. Now, it is their decision, all right? But I just wouldn't leave it up to them. I love you, Dr. Robinson. What? Are you kidding me? So we can't just come here and have this meeting and then back away. Respecting, you know that. So you're asking the question from a place of what's going to be different. She can answer that question as it relates to the board. My question to this group is what's going to be different? Are we going to come in here, blow in, blow off, then blow out, and say, you all want to do something right? Well, no, you know that's not going to work. So we invited you into this meeting to start as a community input meeting. And input don't mean just give us your information. because we're going to then also need you to help us look at these resumes when they come in. We need to come up with a process that says this is the person or the type person. Do we make the decision? No. But we do make the decision about the people who make the decision. And we need to really engage in a meaningful way. Now, I wasn't trying to answer your question, but you gave me a segue. Okay, you gave me a segue to say something that I wanted to say. So I'm gonna give it back to you guys.
Councilman Davis.
Thank you. I'm Councilman Terrence Davis, the at-large representative. Dr. Robinson, I want to thank you all for conducting this meeting. There's too many times things have happened in Palm Beach County, and the community have not done our part. I come as a representative and also as a resident of Palm Beach County. We'll be very supportive, not just on this end, but when you have your meetings, you will see me there a lot more often. Palm Beach County, as you look at South Florida, has more of a gumbo type approach. When you look at the demographics of South Florida, you have people from all variations across the world, but then when you look at the economic and social justice issues, it's a big separation. So whoever we choose, or whatever, no, it's not who we choose, what type of prototype that this organization is looking for, I really look forward to seeing what we're looking for, the input is he or she that is the best qualified for what we see our youth need for their future with the technology, the way the testing is being handled, and the way that the policing issues are being addressed from an administrative standpoint. So I want to thank you all for allowing us to be here, and I would like to sit back and just listen to what the residents want to say today as, you know, when I go back to the board, so we can give them a good response about what happened tonight. But thank you all for all coming out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, TD. Carl.
What I'd like to see in the new superintendent is them have some kind of idea as it relates to the Achievement Matters Law, some kind of training, some kind of orientation as it relates to Achievement Matters Law, and most definitely the superintendent task force is critical that he understand those 11 committees and the data that has been accumulated as a result of that, and also the African and African American history department. It has to be developed, and it seems like we've been staying idle for about 20 years now, and we all know that that's a Florida mandate, and we haven't had no real response to the degree that I believe that we could. And just taking a critical look from the deficit model, because I think it's called the deficit model inside of the superintendent task force, and how possibly we might be able to look at. I see you got equity on there, but equitable approach to education.
Thank you. Other hands? Before we transition, I have some things that I would like to share. I think that our next superintendent has to recognize that not only do you have diverse student and populations, you have diverse employees who are invaluable to the education process. Your bus drivers are invaluable. Your custodians, the folk who work in the cafeteria, those people who work in the front office are oftentimes the one person that makes a major difference in the children's and the families' lives. And so whoever this next superintendent has to see the big vision of who and what they have to inspire. I love that word, Dr. DuPont. And be able to respect and value every one of the 20,000+ employees that they have. I think that this next person has to make sure that schools are good fits for children and their families. It's got to work for them. It's got to be a place that a child wants to come. Children got to want to go to school. Teachers got to want to be there. The staff got to want to be there. I mean, schools have become so hostile. I would, man, please. Now, we recognize that there are high stakes out there. Nothing we can do about that sitting in here. We need a superintendent that can have a vision to work through that. Lastly, I would like a superintendent that will make decisions in the best interest of children. For the children's sake. I was blessed to go to a school during a time when we had apartheid in Palm Beach County. No, we don't like to call it apartheid, but we had it right here. That's when, this district was a part of that. I was blessed to have teachers like many of you who didn't see me as I was, but saw me as who I could become. And it was their mission to make that happen. What would happen if teachers just enjoyed being teachers again? And students had the wonder and love for thirst for learning like my 18-month grandbaby has. I want a superintendent that gets that. So, how do we make sure that happens? Well, the persons who sponsor this, and in this case, in particular, the Coalition for Black Student Achievement, we got some next steps. So the last time we had a superintendent, we did a rubric. And the school board didn't like the fact that we had the audacity to take the resumes that came in, research, do the background, and some of you all was there, so it was hard work, but we researched each and every one of the potential candidates and did our own short list and presented it. All the way down to our choice. We're going to ask you to participate in that process again. And what would this rubric do? It'll help us understand when they begin their conversation exactly who they're talking about. And we will be able to, as a community, to be able to be a part of a process and articulate our thoughts and ideas as informed citizens who've done our research. That rubric is weighted and it looks at qualifications and data sets. So we're going to take the information that you've given us and integrate it into a rubric that looks at the qualifications. It's going to then get weighted against the data that whatever district they're coming from, or districts that they worked in over the last several years. And we're going to look at what the graduation rate was, because it'll tell us something. We're going to look at what the suspension rate was. It'll tell us something. Dr. DePaul, what else are we going to look at? Oh, you gave it to me and I wrote it down. You remember? Go ahead.
It would also look at SAT scores, NAEP.
National Assessment of Education Progress.
Yes, it will also look at that and understand that each of the categories are also broken down by ethnicity as well. And it will be weighted once we do the background searches and get the information. Say, for instance, we're looking at graduation rates, and we look at the rates overall, and then we break those down into the different ethnicities. Then we would weight them whether it was highly efficient, improvement, and then ineffective. So those are the categories in which we will rate according to the percentage of graduation rates. And we will be looking at over 3 years, 2014, 2013, and 2012 for each of the shortlisted candidates. Last time when we did the rubric, we looked at each and every resume that came into the district. This time we are going to wait for the shortlist and then do the research based on the shortlist because of the painstaking days and hours that we spent the last time trying to do this.
Or we'll do it differently. We may look at them all. We're still working that part through. But what we need in order to make this happen is first, we need for you to lend us your power to do it. So, does this process make sense to you? That's the first question. What we're asking you understand we're trying to do a rubric. We're asking for residents all across this district to engage in it. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Second question, does it make sense why we're doing it in the format we're using? Yes, no? Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, you want to cover it? Yes.
When is the deadline?
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
You want to fly? Yeah.
But did you say the 7th is when they're going to have the short list ready? The 7th.
So we got a lot of work to do. All right? Yes.
No, wait, I need, okay, I'm sorry. There's something about the process I need to explain.
The last time you did it, out of the individuals that you picked, how many was picked to be interviewed that the board, your board picked? On the panel, out of the ones you picked?
Well, the ones that we had, our top 3 actually dropped out. Our number 1 person dropped out, and then the other 2 slowly backed out because of, everything that was going on during the process. So, because of that, none of the ones that we picked actually made the short list for the district. So we're hoping this time by having a national search firm, because we didn't have that last time, that these candidates, there will be a one-to-one match, or at least some of our top picks will make the list.
Yes, when I took the survey, I took that survey that the district suggested we take, and there were 31 questions, and in the preface of that, I thought they said select 10 that you wanted, and these are the characteristics that the board members had decided what they were looking for.
No.
Is that my correct understanding?
No. That survey came from the search firm, from their 30 years of experience. So we took the survey too. So that was not our list. Like, we didn't discuss whether or not the person should have a PhD or EDD. That's not our list. That's just a list from their years of experience.
Okay, I thought I understood them to say it that one form in the list that this was the criteria that the district was looking for to selection.
No, what they should have said was that input from the survey, as well as like this form and others, will be used to go from however many people apply to the medium list, so to speak. So let me just try to explain this process, because it's different than last time, and the timeline is rushed, and I'll tell you why. So, if we imagine that 50 people apply, because that's a reasonable number, right? And then let's imagine that 30 meet the qualifications, because we're going to get, we get dog catchers that apply. Okay, so let's say 30 meet the minimum qualifications. And then there's the process to go, say, from 30 to 3 is much compressed compared to last time. Last time we had like 2 weeks, right? And so what's going to happen is the deadline is April 2nd, which is a Thursday. The search firm will work over that weekend, which happens to be Easter weekend, and on the 7th, which is that Tuesday, will present to us us, the public, because as soon as it comes to the board, it's public record, right? Which is an issue, and I'll come back to that. They will present the list of everybody, the 30 in my make-believe numbers, the 30 that meet the qualifications, and they will sort them into these are the ones we think best fit the results of your input, right? That match the results of your input. Here's other ones that look good, but didn't quite match your input, and here's the other one, okay? And so, we'll be presented that as a board on April 8th, Wednesday the 8th. On Wednesday the 8th, the board will go through a process by which we will truly shortlist to like 3, right? So it's a vastly different process than before. And the problem in terms of doing the rubric will be essentially you will only have Tuesday, April 7th to do the research, because that's when it will become public. Right? There might be names that leak out there beforehand that, that people could start researching, but that's when the list will become public. And the reason, and I mentioned before, we have had kind of a bit of a power struggle in a way with the search firm, is because, like I said, they've done it for 30 years or more, and they've got good results, and they've done a lot in Florida. Florida, because of the sunshine law, causes problems for us, because if you have somebody, let's say you have somebody who's a deputy or a superintendent someplace else, and they're doing fine. They're not looking for another job, right? And what this search firm is doing is going to people saying, hey, I know you're good there and everything's fine, but why don't you come down to Palm Beach County? You're a good match. They're recruiting people. It's not just people who are looking for a job, right? So if you're a deputy or a superintendent somewhere, everything's good, you're cruising along, and somebody taps on you and says, why don't you look at Palm Beach County? Well, okay, now you apply, and it's going to hit the press, right? And your board back home is going to find out you're looking, right? And that can have a little destabilizing effect, okay? And so part of the goal is to shorten the amount of time that the madness goes on. You know, the blogs and the people who call up and say, yeah, he stood on my cat 3 years ago or whatever. I mean, that madness that goes on, to shorten the amount of that time so that people don't have to place a bet, if you will, on coming to Palm Beach County, a bet without a promise, and get all this mess going on in the blogs and so forth. So that's why they have a compressed timeline. And actually, what they really want to do was to give the board all the information on Wednesday, April 8th, and we shortlisted. I was like, no, I'm old. I got to look at this stuff over time. You need to at least be able to have 24 hours to digest it, right? So that's the process. That's the change in the timeline, right? So, I mean, you can say that you want to just do the 3 or whatever number it comes out to be that's truly the short list. That's your call. And then you'll have a week, because then the plan is to do the board one-on-one interviews with the shortlisted people on the 14th and 15th, and to select on the 16th. So that's the timeline.
We invite you to be a part of that list on the 7th. We'll just be real busy on that day. So bring me some chicken or whatever you eat, and your computer, your laptop, because we're going to try and do it. So what we'll do is send out to you. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and offer SEIU's War Room. And so that is 21, did I say it right? 2112?
2102 South Congress Avenue.
2112? 2112 South Congress Avenue. And we'll be there from 11:30 a.m. until we finish. So you just can come back and just engage. We're going to work. This is Tuesday, April 7th. We now have a better idea of what the timeline. So we're going to go to work. We really need you to be engaged. You will also be offered an opportunity to be engaged after they shortlist it. We can't stop. So what we're saying is, moving forward, we're taking a different posture around how we're going to work to make sure all schools are good fits for all children.
By any means necessary.
By any means necessary. African proverb. Anything else? On behalf of Ms. Banks and Inlet Grove, on behalf of the Riviera Education Board, did I say it right?
Yeah. And then
Committee, Education Committee, and the Coalition for Black Student Achievement, thank you for your effort, time, and participation. We'll see you on the 7th, if not so. And, I'm sorry, and FIFA and Angelita for their help and support. Thank you. Bye-bye.